Welcome to this getting started video about using Maxwell Render with Houdini. The video will assist you with the installation of Maxwell Render plugin and the first steps in Maxwell Render. First, download the installer from our download area and run it. You need administrator rights to install the plugin to the Houdini folder. If you want to keep the Houdini folder clean, select the Home folder option. The plugin auto-detects the Houdini installation folder, but you can set it manually if you have any other version of Houdini installed. You can uninstall the plugin from the control panel, Add or Remove Programs window. You can find the plugin manual here, which describes all components and controls of the Maxwell Render plugin. You can also find simple step-by-step tutorials at the end of each section. Let's start Houdini and start some render using Maxwell Render. If the plugin is installed successfully, you will find the Maxwell Render settings window in the Edit Preferences menu. Here, you can set the path of the Maxwell Render and the Material Editor executable. There are more options to create the Maxwell Render ROP node. You can add it to the scene from the Render Create Render Node menu, or from the tab menu of the ROP network. The controls of the render operator are separated to several groups. You can specify on the Objects tab which objects and lights take part in the render, same way as a Manta renderer. You can also find tone mapping, render channel and render layer, lens, and IPR settings. The easiest way to add Maxwell Render specific nodes to the scene is using the Maxwell Render shelf. Press the Add Shelf button and select Maxwell Render from the menu. The shelf contains tools to create the Maxwell Render ROP node, Maxwell Camera node, Maxwell Environment, and Maxwell Material node with predefined setup. Use the Maxwell Scene button to set up the scene for Maxwell Render, adding a camera, environment, and render operator. The Maxwell Render plugin displays a preview of the sky settings in the viewport, which makes the setup more comfortable. The Maxwell Camera and Maxwell Environment nodes can also be added to the scene using the tab menu of the OBJ network. The environment in Maxwell can be defined as a sky dome, as a physical sky, or using an HDR image. You can also disable displaying the sky preview in the viewport. If you change any of the sky parameters, the preview changes interactively. You can find more details about environment settings in the next video tutorial. Maxwell cameras model real SLR cameras, so they have familiar parameters such as f-stop, shutter speed, and film ISO. The Maxwell camera is built over a normal Houdini camera, keeping the necessary controls and with an added tab for the Maxwell specific parameters. Shutter speed, ISO, and f-stop controls the exposure of the image, while the diaphragm settings controls the depth of the field and bokeh effect. You can also use normal Houdini cameras in the scene. Open the provided sample scene and take a look at the general settings of the Maxwell Render ROP. The plugin exports the scene to MXS format, which is recognized by Maxwell Render. The files I created to the project folder by default. The format and bit depth of the rendered image can be selected from a combo box. After the image is rendered, it can be displayed in MPlay with all the other paces. Below, the render time and sampling level parameters allow you to define how long the rendering process of the image keeps running. The sampling level represents the quality of the image. Maxwell will stop rendering when the specified sampling level has been reached or the set render time is up, whichever happens first. Let's launch our first render. You can use the render button or the ROP, which will render from the view of the active camera, or you can find Maxwell Render in the film wheel menu, which will start render from the viewport. The plugin exports the scene and starts the Maxwell Render engine. You can follow the image on the interface as it is being computed. The more time you wait, the cleaner the render will be. Maxwell Render engine is started as a separate process, so you can switch back to the Houdini and continue your work while the render is running. You can re-expose your image by adjusting the film, ISO, and shutter speed while rendering or after the render has been stopped. This allows you to full control over the final image, and you don't need to launch the render all the time if you want to adjust the exposure. The small preview window on the left shows the changes interactively. The main image is updated when the next sampling level has been reached. You can zoom in or out using the mouse wheel and pan the image with the middle mouse button. You can stop the render anytime you want with the stop button. After the Maxwell Render interface is closed and the Show and M-Play option is enabled, the final image is loaded to M-Play. Thanks for watching the tutorial. You can learn how to set up the environment and lighting in the next video.